Hello, welcome. It's Writing Wednesday or not. It's actually Friday. If you're like me, you're probably wondering what day it is this week. I don't know. I've been at a conference this week, and so it's been a little crazy. I'm trying to figure out what day it is, but today is Friday. And normally we do Writing Wednesday on Wednesday, but because I was at this conference, which I'll tell you about in a minute, I pushed this back to today. And that's the freedom you have when you own your own author business, right? And so you get to make some of those changes. Now, will it hurt me today? I don't know. Maybe some people won't tune in. Maybe some people will. I don't know. But hopefully, everybody will catch the replay just like they always do. And either way, here I am. What we are going to talk about today, though, is your branding, your writing, branding, branding as a writer, the cohesiveness amongst your books, the cohesiveness amongst your work, and whether that hurts you or helps you. And here's the thing. So, many of you, if you follow me for any length of time, you know I have over 10 books published. And people will be like, oh my gosh, you have 10 books. And I'm like, yes, I do. Four of those books, though, aren't for the same audience as the other books are. Now, don't get me wrong, there may be a little bit of crossover. There is a little bit of crossover in that because obviously there's Christian women business owners who have teams and need HR books. And that's what those four books were. They're business books for HR. Those are the books I'm speaking of at the top here. And if you need those books, fantastic. I love them. I wrote them. There's great stuff in them. But that's not like when we're narrowing down our target audience, when we're narrowing down our ideal reader, the person who we really on our heart want to reach and touch, HR people are not my people. No offense. I wrote the books. I get it. I get HR. I get the need for it. Believe me, my daughter and I have been talking about this for months because she just left a company because of their lack of HR and all the abusive work environment that was happening because they did not have an HR company. So trust me. Oh, and I mean, I can go on and on about my daughters. My oldest daughter, she's experienced so much just bad things at workplace in the workplace, and it's from a lack of HR. So maybe I should have more of a passion for this. I just don't. My passion is help writing Christian books and helping Christian women write their books. I want to help. It's really that simple. I want to write what God puts on my heart, and I want to help you write what God puts on your heart. That's it. That's the cohesiveness of my brand. That's what I do. That's what the Writer's Retreat box is for. That's what the Beach Writing Retreat is for. That's what my Publish and Tell community is for. It is because I want to write what God puts on my heart, and I want to help you write what God puts on your heart. That's it. It's really that simple. Now, did I come to that like that? Was that my original, when I set out to write my first book, was that the way I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to write all these books about? No, no. When I set out to write my first book, excuse me for just a moment. When I set out to write my first book, Save the Butter Tubs, Discover Your Worth in a Disposable World, I set out to help people discover their worth. I knew that there was a problem with worthiness as a whole. Whether it was for believers or non-believers, I knew there was a problem with worthiness. I struggled with worthiness for years, and even as an author, I struggled with that. That book walks you through the process of me discovering my worth while telling the story of my grandmother's worth. You see, she asked me to write a book about all the good in her life. When I was a struggling writer, trying to be published, traditional publishers had rejected me in a really not nice way. Actually, they, basically said, they just said to me, "You're a nobody. We love your work. We love your titles. They're great, but you're a nobody. Come back to us when you're somebody." Ouch, right? And so that was in 2006. And so who knew how to build platforms back then? And the only social media we had back then was MySpace. And so I was like, what am I supposed to be doing here? I don't know. And so while I figured that out, my grandmother asked me to write about all the good in her life. And I knew I had to figure this out and make that happen. And so I married the two concepts together and I shared her story while I learned my worth, and that my worth does not come from someone rejecting me that way. My worth does not come from all the other lies that we tell ourselves. And that's the first part of that book, is the lies we tell ourselves. But that's for another video, right? What we're talking about in this video is the cohesiveness of your writing brand. And so if you look at the books behind me, You see, and it's really funny because this, while it has a little teeny bit of yellow in it, probably can't see. This is the Writer's Retreat box. And the sun is yellow, and then there's like some yellow flowers at the top here. While that has a little tinge of yellow to it, the label's not yellow. And the reason why the label's not yellow is because I'm not sure if the box is going to be yellow or not, or how I'm gonna, like, I wasn't sure yet what I was doing with all this. So I went with that nice soft green color that I happen to love. And if you didn't notice it, it's the same color as this wall over here. So I happen to love that color. And that's not a weird paint thing happening over here. That's a shadow. That looks weird, right? It looks like my paint is like stopped in the corner. Anyway, but all of my books have some sort of teal yellow theme happening. All of them, even the HR books. Um, while it's good, right? Because people can quickly identify my brand. We have a visitor. Come on, come on. My puppy wants to come up and visit. But here she goes. She wants to come up and visit. She likes going live with us. This is Jovi Noel. And people ask what is her name? Her name is Jovi. She's named after the female elf on the movie Elf, and it's because she's so jovial. Okay, so this is Jovi Noel, and she's my little writing companion, and I think she likes to do live videos because she always pops up here. I don't know that she can even see herself. I don't think she's ever figured that out, but what she really likes is that I allow her to actually chew on my hands while we're doing this, because if I don't, she'll be a hot mess. Okay, so going back to brand cohesiveness, you see that all my books they look like they live in the same family. Now, some of them may be a little wilder than others. Like this one here has a lot of movement and purple, but it has the teal and the yellow. In fact, the deeper background in this book is the exact same color background on all of these books. Okay, so it ties it all, it's pulling it all together, even though it's a completely different look of the book, right? You can look at these books and you can say, oh, those must be Brenda's books. I mean, look at the colors, they're fabulous, they're her colors, right? So when you're thinking about brand cohesiveness, colors is certainly a way to bring cohesiveness together. Now, in these books here, this is a series. And so if you look at those books, she's going to get crazy. If you look at those books, I feel like I'm one of those newscasters being attacked by the wild animal that they're putting in their, like they're like, meet the koala from blah, blah, blah. And then that koala attacks them. That's what I feel like is happening right now. So we're going to put her down and see if she'll stay down. Okay, but these three books here, these are the same cover, if you will. Now this one doesn't have the border on it, but it's the same cover. If you see, that's the same countertop. It is, I mean, look at that. It's lined up perfectly. The same countertop, the same blue background, the same yellow border at the bottom. And the only thing that's changed is the object sitting on the counter. The fonts are the same. Now this font is actually this font, but these fonts are the same. Like everything ties together, okay? It's not crazy book, crazy book, crazy book, like one after the other. Everything's going together. Now, if you know me, you know I'm crazy. Look at my hair. I'm crazy. I've got crazy curls, and I tell people they're coming. That's my crazy coming out. There's nothing wrong with unique books. There's nothing wrong with having a book that stands apart. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to create one brand for one particular ideal reader, you should start creating cohesiveness. Fiction, nonfiction, it doesn't matter. I think it's even more important in fiction. So why does this matter? Here's why it matters, is that you're building trust with your audience. You're building trust with your readers. And when they pick up a book that looks exactly like the last really good book they read from you, that's the same expectations they have, because they're like, "Ooh, everything's the same. This is going to be just like the last good book," right? So you want this brand cohesiveness. You want it to be similar. You're building trust. You're building what they call know, like, trust factor with your audience. And you want to do that. Now, does it always have to be with color? No. It can be with the way that you style the book, what's on the book. If you're using natural pictures, or you're using just graphic elements, if you're using graphic or natural, what's the word I'm looking for? There's artistic flair, and then there's actual photographs, and then there's graphic elements. So you have a little bit of everything that you can be throwing together, but you want to make sure that there's some cohesiveness across the front. So I recently went to a conference this week. That's where I was. That's why we're doing Writing Wednesday on Friday. I went to a conference, and one of the things that I noticed was the people who really have niched down, that have really focused in on their audience. Some people only sell one product. Those are the people that are the most successful. And we're talking millionaires. Okay, now this conference was not writers specific, it was actually subscription box specific. It was called Sub Summit. And the people who have narrowed it down, I mean, one guy in particular um, sells fresh flowers. That's it. Fresh flowers delivered monthly. He has over 30,000 subscribers. I'll let you do the math. His subscriptions start between $59 and I think $89. 30,000 subscribers monthly. That's huge, you guys. And so, but that's one product, right? He's narrowed it down. He's got his niche. He knows who his person is. And that's what we need to do as writers. And so, when you look at my writing as a whole, you can see that there was one part that I took this whole U-turn and did this HR series, right? And while I love those books, I wrote those books, I'm very proud of those books. That's not my ideal reader. That's not my long-term goal of working with those people. Now, if somebody asked me tomorrow, hey, you want to come do a quick HR seminar over here? I might do it if I have the time. I still have a heart for that. It's just that that's not my main passion and focus, right? And so we are going to have to find something to distract the puppy here because I'm getting eaten alive. Um, okay, so what I want to get across to you is when you narrow it in, your focus is in the right place. If I am trying to shout from the rooftops about to Christian authors over here and then, oh, HR business over here, Christian authors, it confuses your audience. So if you've noticed recently, in the last, since March, things have been starting to streamline on my branding. Things have been starting to streamline across the board. When I show up here, I'm talking specifically to my Christian women writers. Now, do I work with men still? Absolutely. I still have men in my community. If men wanted to come in my community, I would let them. It's not like it's a secret sister society or anything. I'm teaching publishing, writing, publishing, marketing. So I would let men in. But the person I want to work with the most is Christian women. Why? Because I am one and I know the struggles that we have. And so I can help them better. So I'm focusing in on that. So what I actually ended up doing was splitting with my business partner. She took the HR side of our business and she's going and consulting in HR. That's what she wants to do. That's her passion. And so she's taken that side of the business and gone with it. She bought me out we were business partners, so we did an official split and she went that direction and I'm staying here in the author selection section because that's what I want, that's what I'm passionate about. So I can now focus and bring everything back to my heart's desire, right, which is ultimately what God placed on my heart. So I want you to understand that if you have a million book ideas, and I was just coaching a client yesterday and she had 3 different book ideas. And we went through each book idea. This was a private client. We went through each book idea, and I'm listening to her ideas. And then when we got done, I'm like, okay, how do we put one umbrella over all of this, and so we can serve one audience? And when I explained the difference to her, she had one book that was really focused on business. She's a businesswoman. She's actually an integrator by trade, which is what I am by nature, an integrator. And so by trade, that's what she does. She's a fractional integrator. And so she has this dream, over here for this one book that's for that audience. And then the second book, she starts describing it and she's like, and it could, maybe be for families, maybe be for business. And like she the line was starting to blur, right? And then she brought this third book in and it was for a different audience. And so like I said, okay, we've got to bring this under one umbrella. And so we coached through that and worked with that. And you could tell the aha moment for her, right? When she was like, oh, I get this. And that's the thing. Sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot, right? We're like, we've got these ideas and I'm just as guilty. I mean, I did it. I wrote 4 HR books and while they are successful and they all hit #1 bestsellers and they've been selling around the world, which is fabulous, that's not what my focus is, right? So if you have something like that on your heart and you really, really want to do it, you need to decide, is that what you want to focus on, or is that just a project that you're going to do and then set aside? And so, and be okay with setting it aside. That's the hardest part, right? Because each of these books are like our babies. And if we're going to be like, well, let's just set it aside over here. And I mean, nobody would set their child aside. Well, hopefully, I mean, plenty of people do it in the world, but hopefully you're not that person, right? And so you wouldn't just set that aside and then walk away. It's really hard to do that. And so you need to be focusing on, how do you bring your ideas around to serve one ideal reader, and really get into the niche of it, and then make that a cohesive concept across the board, whether it's through colors, style, whatever, but mainly the content. That's the most important thing, that your content drives in. So people will maybe still ask me, well, you have these great Christian book series up here, but then you have an author series down here. And yes, that's what I'm going to continue to have. You'll see this grow and you'll see this grow, and that's it. These two things are going to be growing. I shouldn't say that's it, because I will likely have wild ideas and weird things will come out. It happens to me. But this is my primary focus. But here's what happens when the weird things come out. It's kind of like you're listening to the radio. Like, let's say you're listening to Christian radio, okay? You're listening to Christian radio and you're singing along and I'm worshiping along, and then all of a sudden they throw like a heavy metal song on. Wouldn't you be like, what happened to my radio? Right? And that's what happens when we throw our wild ideas out in front of our audience, who has been worshiping along with us, they've been learning along with us, and then all of a sudden, here, let me throw this new thing at you. It's like, what? So it really needs to apply to that audience, or we don't need to introduce it to that audience. And so what I mean by that is, depending on how your socials are, you need to be very careful how you throw things out to your audience on social media. Now, if you have so for me, on Publish and Tell on Facebook and Instagram, that's where I come live here and do this. And um, it works, right? It's Publish and Tell. You might know it as the Writers Retreat Box Monthly Coaching Membership and Writing Retreats, which is the longer name of it, right? Because I, for search reasons, put that there. But my URL name is just Publish and Tell. That's my business name. So I can easily direct people. They can find me if they go to Publish and Tell. That's what they'll find. Now, if I also have my Brenda Hare account, and then I have which is my personal account, which for me is public. And then I have my Brenda A. Hare account, which is like my book account. That's a page, but that's like my book page. So on that page, I expect to put whatever I want on that page. If it's a book coming out of me, it's going on that page because it's a book page. It's my book, it's my author page, if you will. Now here on Publish and Tell, it will all be directed towards the Christian woman writing her book, because that's what I'm helping people do here. So having your different socials for different purposes is important. Does some of that cross over? Absolutely. Do I sometimes post the same things in different places, or talk about one thing that's happening over here? Absolutely. But if you want to keep it where you can have that avenue to roll something weird and new out, if that's what you plan on doing, that doesn't necessarily apply to your audience, because you don't want to have that moment where they're like, did I change the channel? What is this person doing now? And have you ever done that? Have you ever seen that on socials? If you've seen that on socials, drop it in the comments. Let me know first where you're watching from, and then drop it in the comments. Yes, I've seen the switch, right? You've seen where you're following this page, you're like, oh yeah, this is my friend so-and-so, they're doing this, I'm going to follow them. And then all of a sudden it pops up, so-and-so changed their name. I've changed my names. So-and-so changed their name, and now they're doing this. And you're like, I don't want to follow them for that. I don't want to follow them. So what happens to me is, people will friend me, and then they will, let's say they have a real estate page. Great. I support realtors, no problem. But here's the thing. I don't want to follow your real estate page for, so-and-so Iowa or something. I'm not going to move to Iowa ever. So I don't want to see houses or things about Iowa. And therefore, I'm not going to follow your page. I'm sorry. I don't want to do that. Now, some people will be like, well, don't you just want to support them? Yes, I do want to support them. And if I ever knew someone that needed a house in Iowa, I would be sure to tell them about that person. But I don't want to see that stuff showing up in my feed every day. And that's The thing about social media as is people throw things out there. I mean, I'll get the weirdest, most random, like my page stuff, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. That shows up in my feed. I don't want to see that. I don't want to follow that page because I don't want to see that. Um, and there's some people that I love and adore, but the stuff that they post on their feeds, I don't want to see it. So I have to stop following and stop seeing it. So you need to post the things that your ideal reader wants to see. And that's it. And don't change it. Don't stray. Don't like talk to them, focus on them, and stay in your lane. So I hope that helps with branding and cohesiveness and helps you understand that it's not just about the colors. The colors matter, it's important. The look matters, it's important. In fact, I'm working with a new author that just said, well, she's a second time author, but she's a new client of mine, and she just said, um, I trust you. I'm working on her book cover design, and she said, I trust you. Do whatever you want. Like your books are fantastic. Like you get it. You totally get all the stuff. And so, of course, I was like, I need your branding kit. I need to know what your colors are. I need to know what your fonts are so that I can move from there. And so, while her first book and her second book won't look anything probably like each other because I'm a completely different designer than the first designer that did, her first book. Well, I'm not, anyway, while that's happening, while Publish and Tell is designing her book cover, um, two completely different designers than from her first book. And so while that's happening, it will be completely different. And she will not, it will, I mean, I could totally recreate what she did the first time, right? But that's not the point. That's not what we're going for. We're going for cohesiveness, not the same. And so, it's funny to me. I always think about Project Runway. I don't know if you've ever watched Project Runway, but I always think about Runway and how some of the designers, when they would say we need a cohesive collection, they totally wouldn't get that, and they that's what would mess people up the most when they had to do a group collaboration and they had to work on cohesiveness. They just didn't get it, and it really comes down to, in that aspect, would the same woman wear each of those outfits? And that's kind of what you need to ask yourself here. Would the same woman read each of these books? And for me, I can say the same woman would read all of these books. And if she's a Christian woman who's a writer, she would absolutely read these books. And so that's my audience. So I hope that that helps you with branding and cohesiveness. Again, it's not all about color. It's really about the content. It's really about your person. Who is she? Who are you speaking to? And for me, that's a woman who wants to share her testimony, wants to share her story. And so, like I said before, I'm a Christian woman who's writing books to help other Christian women tell their stories, to have the confidence to move into what God wants them to move, to know that they're worthy, to know that they need to move when God says move. They can be bold in that encounter and take action. That's what all of these books are about. And so I hope that really helps you. And until next week, I'm not sure if I'm going to have Writing Wednesday next Wednesday because I'll be traveling and I don't know where I'll be. So we'll see what happens. It may be a little surprise, something or other comes up. But if you're part of my coaching community, I will see you at noon today for our Tech Talk. It usually is Wednesday, but Tech Talk, we'll be doing that today, Friday, Tech Talk at noon. See you then. I have great stuff for you. And don't forget, if you haven't registered for the beach writing retreat, I've consolidated everything into one ticket price at this point, rather than VIP and separate general admission. So it's $450 for the whole weekend, 3 days. $450. Go over to writingbeachretreat.com, writingbeachretreat.com. The link is in the comments. Go over there, grab your ticket before the price goes up July 1st, and